You know, I said Steve Forbes would never, ever, ever in a million years be the coach at Wake Forest. So I was wrong. Hey, it's Marky Bilson here. Of course, the last time I was speaking to you in a recent podcast, I mentioned that I did not think that Steve Forbes had any chance of becoming the new Wake Forest head men's basketball coach, and he'll be officially announced tomorrow at 11 o'clock as the Demon Deacons' next coach. Okay. The reason was simple. His background really isn't that of the standard ACC coach. It's only a few years ago he was coaching a junior college. And this is the first time he has ever coached a private university. On top of that, looking at this, he's 55 years old. And a couple of years ago, Craig Meyer of Pittsburgh Post-Gazette tracked the previous 187 major college basketball coaching hires dating up to 2018. He found that only 19 of them were people 55 or over. And of them, really only 2 were successful, and they had success at major universities previous to their current stop. One of them, for instance, was Rick Barnes, who, of course, took Tennessee to the #1 ranking in the country a couple of years back. But, of course, he had made the NCAAs just about every year at Texas. He had been to the NCAAs at Clemson. So he had had success before, proven track record. Someone coming from a mid-major to a major like Steve Forbes, yeah, at 55, generally speaking, they haven't been successful. Now, in the case of Forbes, he also relied heavily on junior college transfers. 5 of his current players had come from the JUCO route. I'm not saying JUCOs can't be good students, but at Wake Forest, which has a 29% acceptance rate among freshmen, according to the latest figures that I saw from 2018, that generally isn't friendly for JUCO transfers. There are exceptions. When Jackie Sherrill was the football coach at Mississippi State, he brought in a lot of JUCOs, and they did quite well academically as well as on the field. But generally speaking, at a school like Wake Forest, small enrollment, exclusive enrollment, yeah, bringing in the JUCOs, it's a little bit of a higher level academically than the schools that Forbes has been at previously, say ETSU, which accepts 87% of their freshman applicants. Bit of a difference there. So the JUCO will probably be able to get into ETSU. Wake Forest might be a different story. Now, the interesting thing here is that at Wake, and with Steve Forbes, he is really a straight shooter. And he's been able to recruit everywhere he has gone. So I could see him bringing in the 4-year transfer, as he had at ETSU, say Lucas Gasson from Oklahoma State, someone like that. Yeah, I could see him bring that guy into Wake Forest, as well as, let's say, the most prestigious academic JUCO transfers that he could, and also be able to recruit 4-year players who would do well academically. I don't really have much doubt that he would be able to do that, and those that know Steve Forbes will tell you, look, in a sport filled with slick coaches, Steve Forbes is not a slick coach. But really, I think the reason why Forbes is at Wake Forest right now, one reason, John Curry, the athletic director at Wake Forest, previously at Tennessee, and before that he was at Kansas State, but he had really had an administrative background at Tennessee in the first decade of the 21st century. And for 3 years, Steve Forbes was an assistant basketball coach to Bruce Pearl during that time. So their paths crossed, and they got to know each other, and Forbes will win you over. That's what everybody says. And Forbes won a lot of games there with Bruce Pearl, as the Vols were #1 in the country for a week back in 2008. So now consider this. John Curry uses Ventura Partners as his search firm. Ventura Partners was the same search firm that helped Greg Schiano land the Rutgers job. We can discuss whether or not Ventura Partners was really needed to bring Schiano back to Rutgers, but they were part of that hire. Why is John Curry the athletic director at Wake Forest and not Tennessee? Oh yeah, he listened to the big-time boosters at Tennessee. Bring in Greg Schiano. Fan revolt. The next thing you know, within a week, John Curry can't bring in a replacement for Schiano, and he's out of a job. So think about some of the other candidates that were being considered, at least in the media, by Wake Forest. Here we go. John Beilein, formerly of formerly of the Cleveland Cavaliers and Michigan Wolverines before that, 67. He's just too old. Thad Matta. I thought Matta had a chance at this job because from the previous track record of Curry, he liked to bring in successful people from major programs. But Matta, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. Too much money, maybe? Hey, you might have to pay off Danny Manning, and you might have to give him a lot of money. I know that there's some talk of, we're going to fire Danny Manning for cause. Yeah, good luck with that. There's either going to be a big payout or a big settlement there. Chris Collins up at Northwestern, that sounds like a search firm candidate, doesn't it? And academically minded Wake Forest, academically minded Northwestern. He was the first coach to ever take the Wildcats to the NCAAs. Sure, he'll win in the ACC, except he's off of 3 straight losing seasons. And Curry trying to make his big hire. Yeah, you can't make that as your first big hire at a new school, a coach with a losing record from Northwestern at Wake Forest, which just had some success in the past on the hardwood, let's face it. So Collins, yeah, that sounds such like a search firm guy, and Curry says, I don't know, yeah. For that matter, Tommy Amaker sounded like a search firm guy, didn't he, up at Harvard? And you know what Curry had to think? Well, yeah, Amaker, Harvard, I mean, he'll impress the academic administration here at Wake, but he's 54 years old. Why don't I just hire Steve Forbes? He's 55, but he's the devil I know. Amaker is the devil the search firm recommends, theoretically at least. And then there's Wes Miller, who was and still is the head coach at North Carolina Greensboro, or UNCG as they like to be called. Miller's only 37. His family, big-time donors, but maybe, just maybe, 2 big-time donors. Hey, let's face it, Curry listened to the big-time donors about Schiano, and it cost him his job. Now, if he hires Miller, then, yeah, he does stand the chance of being a pawn to the major boosters again. Maybe he just didn't want to go through that. I can't blame him. The other thing about Miller is, what if Miller did have some success? What if Miller took the Deeks to a winning record this next season? Again, a major rebuilding project. Let's say he did. And then Roy Williams steps aside. And here's Miller, who his family may be all about Wake, but yeah, Miller played at UNC. And boy, oh boy, if North Carolina could take Miller from Wake Forest, they'd never have to worry about Wake Forest again in the standings. It would make a school that already is in the shadow of North Carolina forever be subservient to North Carolina. That's a big, big risk. And you can ask for a clause in the contract. You can't go to North Carolina. Good luck in getting him to sign that. From Miller's standpoint, also, what if Steve Forbes does become the coach at Wake Forest, which he did? Well, it makes it just that much easier for him to win the Southern Conference with Forbes not around. They're at UNCG. Last 4 years, UNCG Wes Miller has had the 4 winningest seasons in the history of the Spartans program. Now, with that in mind, maybe, just maybe, let's say North Carolina stays mediocre this next season. turned 70. Okay, time to retire. And you've got Wes Miller coming off another 20 victory season and winning the Southern Conference Championship. He's going to be a better candidate than he would be if he goes to Wake Forest and, say, posts a losing record in his first season. So, maybe Miller turns him down, and maybe that's how a coach like Forbes is able to trickle into Wake Forest. The Matas, not paying me enough, or I don't know if I'm all that interested. Same thing with the Millers, and then here's Steve Forbes. Yeah, I've worked with him. Hey, I can vouch for him. I know he had that show Cosby. I had nothing to do with Bruce Pearl lying about that cookout. And let's also not forget, Pearl and Forbes, still very popular men, basically to those that they've always been around. Pearl, of course, for years and years, Tennessee fans would have welcomed him back with open arms, and there still is a little bit of, who would we really rather have? Barnes right now, or, would we be better off if Pearl never had lied about that cookout? Come on, I think so. And he wouldn't be at Auburn, and Auburn wouldn't be all that good. I mean, that's the mindset of the Tennessee basketball fan. And so here's Curry. He's worked with Forbes. And you know what else? Maybe that background of those transfers that I thought would prohibit Forbes from being the head coach at Wake Forest, maybe, just maybe, it helped him get the job. Because Wake Forest is a rebuilding project. And in terms of a quick fix, transfers can do it. I don't know if he'll get all the JUCOs he once accepted into the school, but Forbes has had a lot of success with the 4-year college transfers, and you get the feeling he'll have that success at Wake Forest as well. So these are the reasons why Forbes was able to defy the odds, so to speak, with his background and come to Wake Forest. Now, a few things that he's got to do if he wants to be successful in Winston-Salem, because if he doesn't do these things, or if he tries doing these things again, it'll kill him in the ACC. First thing is the way that college athletics has changed this week, where the players will be able to make money off their likeness. Now, Steve Forbes did endorsements around town for a local car dealer, this sort of thing. And I'm just curious if he's going to try to be that big primary voice of Wake Forest, which could probably get away with. And yeah, that's usually what a college coach is. But we're now in a different time. And frankly, if the point guard at Wake Forest now can do the endorsements for the Winston-Salem car dealer and, drive off with a new sports car as well as a healthy chunk of change in his pocket because he's done these commercial endorsements, that might be an opportunity that one could have in a city like Winston-Salem that you wouldn't get in, let's say, I don't know, Starkville or something, or for that matter, even a North Carolina, because that's a state school, and, one would think, okay, yeah, you can get the Chapel Hill car dealer, certainly locally, but really, what's the pull? Is the pull as great as it could be when you're looking at, say, localized fan base there in Winston-Salem for such an endorsement? Will Forbes be able to, at 55 years old, change with the times and let his players have equal billing with him? Didn't do that at ETSU. It could be the key to his success at Wake Forest. A couple other things he's really got to avoid. These were major faux pas he made at ETSU. Because ETSU, not a critical media in Johnson City, he was able to get away with them. He won't in the ACC. Introductory press conference, Steve Forbes, 5 years ago. Remember, I don't even know how to coach a zone defense. Well, the first time he plays a zone defense at Wake Forest, somebody's going to ask him about it, and it's not going to come off looking that well for Steve Forbes. But the other thing is that it was kind of viewed at the time as a slight shot against Murray Bartow. In fact, the fans applauded it. They were sick of Murray Bartow playing the zone all the time. No more zone, no more Belmont lighting it up from 3 from the outside. That's great. They love to hear it. In the ACC, there are going to be other fan bases that'll say, boy, he just gave that coach a shot. and it's not going to look too good on him. Another thing, during the honeymoon period of his stay at ETSU, had his picture taken alongside a mural of Mr. Jennings. Now, everybody knows Keith Jennings, the greatest basketball player in the history of ETSU, would love to return to ETSU as an assistant coach. He's currently coaching the women's team up at Lees-McRae. However, that call never came from Steve Forbes. Now, do you see himself posing with the glory of Mr. Jennings, but not giving Mr. the opportunity? You do something like that to a Tim Duncan, to a Muggsy Bogues, and the Wake Forest fans are going to come down on you. ETSU fans won't. ACC fans, Wake Forest fans will. Final thing, and I know this sounds personal, but for reporter asked Steve Forbes if he played a player with a concussion, the answer is yes or the answer is no. The answer is not, how dare you question my integrity. Yeah, I'm the reporter that asked that question. However, that's shooting the messenger. And the other fan bases of the ACC will crucify Forbes if he tries something like that, especially if, as he's screaming at the reporter, he's talking about how the player was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs after the game. Yeah, he's hiding behind FERPA in one moment and saying he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs after the game. Sounds to me like you played the guy with a concussion. And you're shooting the messenger for that? You can get away with that in Johnson City. You can't in the ACC. So, those are the 3 lessons that I give to Steve Forbes he's got to learn from if he wants to succeed at Wake Forest. If you want to succeed getting the best analysis of ETSU and the hardest hitting opinions in sports in the Tri-Cities, I urge you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the bell. I put new stuff up every day, some of the archives of my old show, and also these podcasts as well. So, next podcast we're going to do, who could some of the ETSU head coaches be? I've got a name that not a lot of people are talking about, but it's going to make you go, oh yeah. So subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.